incredibly disappointed about this forced sterilization narrative when I see my own communities actually actually gets sorry yeah, it just actually get inflicted by this. It's yeah. I'm sorry about my, getting a little emotional there.
Now, the thing you talked about just now, you spoke about just now, the danger of doing this, is that why your face is covered?
Most likely. I mean, I am an attorney. I work at a big firm and whatnot, but it's more about family and friends. I talk to so many people from my political background and my, racial, cultural background and whatnot. And people like me are often targeted when we speak out on issues like this. I know so many uh, comrades of mine really get harassed by police, get doxxed by Nazis and neo-Nazis and whatnot. They get harassed and things of that sort. It's not fun,
Yeah.
and it's really something. I have to say that it's nothing. I obviously am willing, ready, and able to risk, my career and whatnot. I'm not really concerned about that. The more concerned thing that I'm about is being passionate about what is going on here. However, I know the dangers that I'm putting my families and other at risk if this is
I
revealed.
think
And
I think yeah,
yeah,
yeah. People really don't appreciate how and how ironic it is too. These people who are talking about free speech and freedom and people being oppressed, but this is a common story over and over again. And it's not just you
yeah,
from your ethnic background. You look at like the most simple thing that LeBron James said, that I think we're
yep,
uninformed on the situation in Hong
oh,
Kong, which was the understatement of the century, and how he
yep,
was targeted for that. I know somebody else in Australia who has a Chinese tea shop. They are not Chinese themselves, but they're pushing back on this propaganda. She
yep.
had her shop targeted by officials now. Her shop was
I mean,
shut down. And then there's another guy I know who had a really, really good rebuttal to one of the Xinjiang stories. And there was a guy that started following him around and sending him messages, hacked his computer, knew like all kinds of stuff about him, and he slipped up on one piece of information. So he actually managed to get the police to help him, and the guy's been arrested.
wow, wow.
Um,
And that
and
and
then
that that
yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say that's really something that we are also wary about, especially people of color. We don't immediately go to the police for obvious reasons because sometimes they are the antagonizers as well. When I look, I always say it's I am more than willing to do a face reveal when I am somewhere in China more than doing somewhere over here.
you know
So
what? That
I'm not.
that's yeah. You said it exactly. Like for this stuff, when I was speaking up about it, if I wasn't living in China, I wouldn't be pushing
Mhm.
back on it. And
Yep.
and that's the ironic thing is people say, "Oh, you have to say this because you're in China." It's like, no, I can only say this because I'm in China.
Boom.
And
Boom.
yeah, and I remember like just the other day, I started. I don't. I used to never block anybody on Twitter, but some of it
Mhm.
started getting really. Yeah, there was one guy from. It's a Russian guy living in Hong Kong, supporting the Hong Kong protests. He posted a picture of my kids on Twitter and says, "How is your kids? God bless your family." And
Jeez.
it's like these
Wow.
people are, yeah, but in China, luckily I feel safe. But I definitely would not be doing this if I lived outside of China. It's completely upside down from what people assume. That is.
Oh man, it's just
You
like
you 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 did a
you.
good review. Yeah, you did a good review on the poverty alleviation stuff that they were
Yeah.
doing. And
Yeah.
now PBS also did a poverty alleviation video on China, and it was removed from the
Mhm.
air in the U.S. for being too pro Beijing. What
Surprise.
pro Beijing? All it was doing was showing people being lifted out of poverty, and that was too offensive to be shown
Censorship.
in the U.S.
Censorship in the land of the
A-
free.
and and there was the other guy who recently went to tour the poverty alleviation stuff, and the thing that he was harping on was he saw pictures of Xi Jinping on the wall. They said, "Yeah, sure, they're being lifted out of poverty, they're being given free houses, but there's a hidden agenda. Look, there's Xi Jinping's picture on the wall." And I was
I
like,
remember. I was going to say, not to interrupt, but I remember there was actually this Michael Moore video. Not that I like Michael Moore too much and everything, but he did this bit where um, they were selling gas for under $1 to Americans, and they were saying, "Hey, this is actually going to Saddam, even though there's sanctions. We have an organization. Are you okay with this?" And Americans were like, "Yeah, of course I am. I don't care. I'm getting free gas. Blah blah blah." It's like, oh, and they sold out within the hour as well. It's just
But
amazing,
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
you know.
the people here. I mean, it's a culture that people don't really understand too on the outside. You know, I remember when I was in Tibet and I was interviewing the herdsmen. Nobody told them to do this. They said, "Oh, wait, wait, wait," and they went to get one of their pins, which was on their other jacket, and it was a pin of Mao Zedong, this Tibetan guy. And I said to him,
Wow,
I
proud.
knew, yeah, he was proud, and you could see the way he was talking to me and everything like that. But I knew
Mm,
how Western audiences would see that. And I asked him, and I felt kind of embarrassed to do that because this was something he was proud of. But I just
yeah,
said to him, I said, "You know what? Do you mind actually maybe don't put it on because
sure,
it's going to distract, and that's all people are going to
sure.
focus on." But yeah, that was a
I
weird
mean,
thing with the
and this is the frustrating thing about it as well. Like, I know a lot of Westerners may hear that and they say, "Oh no, he was trying to put it on to protect himself because the government's watching him and everything." And it's like, no, dude.
yeah.
Believe it or not, there are people that genuinely like their country for what they are
And
providing. People like Adrian Zenz, who believes they are on a mission by God to destroy China. Yeah, Human Rights Watch, World Uyghur Congress, and other NGOs that are just facades for the State Department and Ned and whatnot. Um, I'm blanking on her name.
Rushan
Abbas.
Abbas. Yeah.
Yes, Rashan Abbas. She was exposed big time on Reddit for just being another CIA shill, basically, and trying to say, "Oh no, I'm here to protect the Uyghurs. I'm an activist." It's like, no, BS.
And
And I
you know
was
what?
super happy.
It's way worse than that. She
Yeah,
worked with the CIA in Guantanamo Bay, overseeing
torture,
Uyghur
torture.
prisoners. Yeah,
Ah,
I mean, and then when she was exposed, she didn't continue with her AMA because all of the questions were about what was it like working for the CIA. But then
yeah,
recently she
yeah.
came out on Twitter and she says, "Oh, Guantanamo Bay is better than Xinjiang, and I'm not ashamed of
Oh
working in."
wow,
And it's like, yeah, yeah, I hear
dude.
that it's like a vacation. They've got water sports and everything, don't they? It's
Bravo, bravo. I mean, seriously, that they're continuing these narratives to promote themselves and become successful behind a facade of lies, but it's okay because the Western narrative is supporting them, and they get thousands of dollars just regurgitating this nonsense, and
yeah,
they're
yeah. And the other thing too is though people need to ask themselves because there's no short like you've done it, I've done it. How many people need to be exposed as lying about this story before people start asking the question? I mean, of course, they can keep throwing stories at us faster than they can be debunked. That's not the hard thing to
mm,
do, is to just come up with a random story. But after a certain number of people are exposed that they're actually working for the CIA, or one of the main people turns I forget her name, in Adrian Zenz's most recent sterilization story.
I know of her.
She
Yeah.
changed her story within 6 months. Like within six
Yep.
months, she says, "Oh no, it was just mental abuse." And then later, it turned into, "Oh, I was kicked in the stomach until I was bleeding and can't have babies anymore." It's like that's a pretty big change in story in 6 months. Or Uyghur activists online whose age of their family keeps changing every time they talk about them.
I mean,
Or
you did the interview, Daniel, with Arsalan, the Uyghur activist, who
yeah,
basically has a whole bunch of circumstantial evidence and just nothing actually pointing to the oppression. But right, right.
there's gonna be prisons now. In terms
No,
of
but
saying,
Daniel, you got to understand here. You got to bomb the countries though, and create a media campaign against the minorities, so you can feel better about yourselves. That's what the Americans did with September 11th, the terrorist attack. So we have to follow their lead. But what China did was, a very peaceful way of trying to avoid terrorism by giving them jobs, by giving them opportunities, and it baffles me that since 2000, I think it was since 2017, that one person died from a terrorist attack since, and
yeah,
we're still wondering why we had to spend $1 trillion, more than $1 trillion abroad, bombing innocent people, costing hundreds and thousands of lives, when China kind of gave the solution right then and there. I mean, obviously, upping security was important, and facial recognition's obviously a controversy as well. But I'm looking at the results here, and they are stunning. I remember there was this guy. I think he's a rapper on YouTube, Nunez or something like that. He's Canadian too, I think. He was walking about Xinjiang and he noticed these things as well. But also, it's like this is a vibrant city. This is a normal, vibrant city that tourists can really enjoy. And I'm really hoping that I can do that someday when all this Corona stuff dies down. But we'll see.
Yeah, in regards to how America deals with it, I think this is a really good time to play one video here.
Sure.
Hold on one second, and we'll see how does America deal with these, and when they acknowledge that there is an issue.
Over the
Huh.
past weekend, United States forces conducted air operations to strike Taliban and East Turkestan Islamic Movement, or ETIM, training facilities in Badakhshan province. The destruction of these training facilities prevent terrorists from planning any acts near the border with China and Tajikistan. The strikes also destroyed stolen Afghan National Army vehicles in the process of being converted to vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices. One brief note on ETIM, which I just mentioned. They are a terrorist organization that operates in China and the border regions of Afghanistan. ETIM enjoys support from the Taliban in the mountains of Badakhshan. So hitting these Taliban training facilities and squeezing the Taliban support networks degrades ETIM capabilities. What I'd like to do is show you a couple videos of strikes in this area in Badakhshan. The first one that you're going to see is a B-52 strike on a Taliban training camp in Badakhshan. Adrian, can you please roll the tape? This strike occurred on 4 February.
That's how they re-educate.
And this is in China's borders as well.
No. This one was outside. These were Uyghur fighters that were training with the Taliban. This one should be Afghanistan. So no, they definitely wouldn't do that within China's borders.
I was gonna say because when I heard China bordered and everything like that, I was like, well, are they seriously doing this? I mean,
No,
hopefully it's
they
a
wait
joint
till they cross.
exercise or something.
They wait till they cross over, and then they
Mm,
take care of them. They take care of the Muslims like they usually do, American style.
right,
No,
right.
no re-education programs, no none of this. And you got to ask yourself: there was what was it? It was like 30,000 Uyghurs confirmed fighting in Syria with ISIS. When they return home, what are you supposed to do with them? What are you
I,
supposed to do
I
with them?
I swear, I wish I found this article. It was in this big database that I linked to my video, the John Oliver video. But they were actually saying that the CIA was involved with trying to help Uyghur terrorists come in and out of China to basically cause disrupt and disorder and everything like that. And not that I know whether that's legitimate or not, but again, doesn't surprise me.
I mean, it's
If it
exactly what
is,
they did in Tibet. It's exactly what they
yeah,
did in Tibet. They spent
yeah.
$1.7 million a year, 500,000 of that, which was for training camps to radicalize Tibetans, and that's long enough ago where it's all declassified. And you'll see the same thing. You'll see the same thing come out saying, "Oh, it turns out we were doing this," but it's going to be long enough later where nobody really cares anymore. So they're
Mm.
blacklisting these companies like HIK Vision for providing surveillance equipment for what they think is happening in Xinjiang. But not only didn't they blacklist contractors who performed actual torture in Abu Ghraib against Muslims, but they still give them billion-dollar deals.
Huh.
So this
I
is the
mean,
CIAC. They still haven't been held responsible. And look at this; they have been and this 1.5 billion. Nobody reported this. I only found this by mistake because I just had this wild
wow.
idea. I thought, I wonder what happened to the companies that actually caused, they know for a
Sure,
fact
sure.
that did these things to Muslims. And I found
Yeah.
this on CACI's website. It was under their press releases. And
Wow.
nobody has
Bragging
reported this.
about.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, the United States has some really mental gymnastics when it comes to justifying the torture that they inflict on Muslims, whereas China really attempts to uh, alleviate their social social circumstances and whatnot as minorities and whatnot, poverty and things of that sort, and that's seen as inauthentic and oppressive. I mean, it's double speak with everything that has been happening, along with the double speak that is happening with the with the Western countries. On top of the fact that we have this absolutely crucial election that really isn't changing anything because Joe Biden is ramping up his anti-China rhetoric as well.
Yeah, it's
I
like a
mean,
competition. Who's going to hate China the most, isn't it?
yeah, it's really bad faith to be honest, and they're picking up the same narratives and everything, but at the same time, I know what may I have a feeling what the Democrats may do is they'll probably talk big and whatnot, but and they'll scale back some of the trade enforce or the trade obstacles and everything like that, and saying no, we're still fighting, but business is business, blah blah blah. But at the same time, uh, I know I saw your video on why 4 more years of Trump will is something that China is actually egging on, and seeing actually the progress China has done with Trump being a unified wedge, if that's a oxymoron, if you ever heard one. Whereas Trump has really stagnated the United States, whereas China has rose because of that. 4 more years of Trump won't be that all bad either. However, the tensions are rising,
Yeah,
especially
I mean, the key is if it will take one wrong move, it will take
yeah,
wrong. Even if they don't, even if the intention isn't to start a war,
right.
we're getting so heated up that it's just going to take one small misstep,
They're
and
using
it's
civilian planes to spy on people now over there. I remember they retrofitted civilian planes, I think flying either from Malaysia or Taiwan to spy on people, like they're egging on a international incident to happen with a airliner. You know,
it's scary, and this is the time when we need people to think critically. They need to
right,
remember how many times they've been lied to about stuff like this before,
right, right.
and people just are they're ready for it. They're being primed for war. They're being completely flossed of their tax dollars in the case of Australia with these kinds of deals with companies like
Right.
ASPI, and and
No.
and, and people are just willingly going along with it. You know.
Comparing what was in 2005 to 2014 to now, how the change
Oh, it's
has
massive.
just
Yeah.
been incredible, and whereas over here, California is trying to build almost $1 trillion bullet train from San Francisco to LA, and it's taking years to do. San Francisco has an empty terminal downtown thinking that this California speedway was going to happen, and it's not. Whereas China, my God, they
In the
expanded.
in the
Ugh,
12 years I've been in China, there has been about 35,000 kilometers of subway, or sorry, of high speed rail done.
wow,
When I arrived in China, there was pretty much, other than the maglev in Shanghai, there was pretty much one high speed train from Shenzhen to Guangzhou, and it's not as fast as the high speed trains we've got now. And they've built
right.
tens of thousands of
And,
yeah,
and going as far,
in Shenzhen here, the subway system, they
sure.
had 2008 until now. They've built about, in just this city alone, they've built, I think, like 250 kilometers of subway line in the
Oh,
12 years that I've been
jeez.
here.
We had the Powell station in San Francisco. We had the longest project to just build from downtown Union Square to Chinatown, and that's literally just a couple blocks, and that took years, Daniel. I am not kidding you. The stagnating amount, and the inefficiency of our systems is just truly showing. And I'm. This is why when I look at issues like the Uyghur and Xinjiang and how it all links together, I can only admire China for what it's gone through and what it's continuing going through. I mean, just on the train stuff alone, they were able to build. I seen a CGTN documentary and how they were building this train all the way out there through the mountains, through everything
It's
to
tough.
build a station out there. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people died doing this as well, but at the same time, they really try to uh, push the innovation and development and progress to bring them um, uh, to these opportunities. And a lot of people, which is frustrating, there's actually a really good informational video about the development of the speedway in China that's made by a Westerner. But you can see the little biased tidbits that they leave behind when they say, "Oh, they're just reaching out with their train policy because they want to unify China more and bring these ethnicities together and everything." And it's like, dude, it's not a plot. Yes, unity is important, but there's jobs to be had. There's opportunities to be had here, not some evil unifying plot. It goes back to the stereotype too of the communistic tentacles, entrapping the world and everything. It's absolutely frustrating.
There are tens of thousands of Uyghurs who travel to Saudi Arabia.
Mm,
There are many of them. You can even see them on YouTube that cross the border over into neighboring countries for shopping and come back. There are um, there are refugee camps. There are places where people can claim asylum in the countries surrounding
yeah,
China and and Xinjiang. Why aren't they
yeah,
full of Uyghurs if they want?
yeah,
If the situation is so bad here, why aren't they leaving?
yeah.
It is like people people just
Whenever
aren't
there
thinking.
is a genocide, I mean, come on, we can actually do a study on this. Whenever there is a genocide, there is usually a huge diaspora, or there's a huge migration of people. Hell, we see, I mean, granted, this was a war, but we've seen this in Syria when people from Syria try to migrate up to Europe, And if there is obviously this great concentration camp oppression, we would see some statistics showing that there's a flood of Uyghurs leaving China and none to be found. Where are the refugee camps? Where are the mass migrations of Uyghurs leaving? And they're leaving, all right, but then they're coming back. They're doing the touristy stuff, and they're coming back to their hometowns. Like any other country. And this goes out to everywhere else as well. Like China has so many tourists traveling around the world in general, and they obviously come back as well. I mean, and they have access to birth control and whatnot now, but that's now seen as sterilization. I really am incredibly disappointed about this forced sterilization narrative. When I see my own communities actually get sorry yeah, it just actually get inflicted by this. It's it's really bad. I mean, when I see women from my communities that are locked up in cages, that are literally silently suffering, whether it's the systematic sexual suppression that happens there, whether it's the um, forced sterilizations, whether it's, I mean, they even found mass graves by the border. I'm kidding you not. Like, uh, all this cover up, and this is the actual genocide that is happening in the world today. But because of the Western media twist and terms, we're more focused on vocational schools and programs that are actually that we need here, that my community needs here, that Black and Brown communities need here. Um, that they are that they're not getting it, and it's being suppressed not only because it's against the overall narrative. But yeah, I'm sorry about my getting a little emotional there.
No, no,
I
no.
do
It's
think
understandable.
yeah,
It's
I do think
understandable,
it's
and
a bad way.
it, it it makes me think of the video I saw of Muhammad Ali when he was, when they were talking about
Yeah,
invading Vietnam, when he was
yeah,
like, "Why am I going to go halfway across the world to fight some people in the mud that I've got no problem with,
Yeah.
and you don't
Yeah.
even stand up for my rights at home. You're not even doing anything for me here at home. You're the one who's my oppressor, and
Right.
and I'm gonna go. Yeah, he says no way.
Go shoot my brother, some darker people, some poor, hungry people in the mud for big, powerful America, and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality, raped and killed my mother and father. Well, I'm going to shoot them for what? How can I shoot them poor people? I'll just take me to jail.
I'm saying you're talking about me about some draft, and all of you white boys are breaking your neck to get to Switzerland and Canada and London. I'm not going to help nobody get something my Negroes don't have. If I'm going to die, I'll die now right here fighting you. If I'm going to die, you my enemy. My enemy is the white people, not Vietnams or Chinese or Japanese. You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
On that note,